Well, hello everyone. This is Brother Donnie. I'd like to welcome you to Heroes of the Faith. Good evening. I hope you are doing well. I hope you can hear me okay. Hope it is warm where you are at in the country. Here it is 40 right now. It's been cold today. I know it's cold in other parts of the country, but welcome in to Heroes of the Faith. My name is Brother Donnie, and we are talking about some of the great heroes there have been in our faith throughout the years. Let me say hello to Mary Catherine, first in the house first. Hello, Sylvia. God bless you. Hope you're doing well. Hello there, Jim. God bless you. And Leanne, I hope you are doing well also. And hey, Rough Cut Duke, Mr. Duke, good to see you. Warren, good to see you, brother. Hope you're doing well. I see where Sylvia said it's, but she sent me a text earlier. It's going to be 11 degrees this Thursday. Going to be cold for sure. Make sure your pipes is good and wrapped up, and may want to leave some of that water trickling too. That is some cold weather going to be coming in here. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I think you will thoroughly enjoy tonight's installment here of Heroes of the Faith. I like to try to find other heroes of the faith other than simply the leaders of the Reformation and others. And so tonight we're going to talk about actually a young lady, and that young lady's name is Olimpia Fulvia Morata. And she is an Italian scholar and an advocate for the Reformation. This is Olimpia right here. She was 29 years old when she died. And the reason I like highlighting these other people that had a hand in the Reformation is it gives us great comfort and hope to know that God just doesn't use preachers or teachers or professors. God uses whom He will, and He used this lady tremendously. So let's get right into it. Olympia, and that's what I'm going to call her, Miss Olympia, for the evening. She was Italian. What a great girl. And I had never heard of her before, and I come across her name, and I just started studying on her a little bit. So Olympia was born in Ferrara, Italy, around 26 October 1526. She is highly educated, and her father, or excuse me, her father was highly educated and served as a tutor to the court of Alfonso. Now, back in these times, it's a little different what we have now. Back in these times, the rich folks was able to afford tutors to come into their home and to educate their children and help with their studies. So her father was a tutor to some highfalutin folks. Well, we don't know much about her mother, but Olympia was one of five children. She had three sisters and a younger brother. Their father encouraged the education, and the girls were considered best. And again, now this is way back now. The ladies, the women were treated differently than they are now. It was viewed for educating women. It was viewed, and I put the note here. It was viewed as a waste of time, and at best a waste of time, and at worst corrupt influences. There just was not the same level of emphasis put on women as it is today. Nonetheless, her father wanted her to have an education. Now, it needs to be said, their family was Catholic. Italy, of course, being, Rome and Italy was highly Catholic at the time. And the Reformation had not really branched out a ton into Italy yet. Olympia was taught Greek and Latin, possibly also Hebrew, by two brothers, as well as by her fathers. Now she learned Greek, Latin, and Hebrew all before she was 12 years old. Now that's something. And at some point in time, her father moved to a family to Venice, where he taught for a few years, returning back to the palace at the summons of Alfonso's son, where he was also a tutor again. And then Olimpia was selected to be the Duke's daughter's companion. And the Duke's daughter's name was Princess Anna. Now, Princess Anna is in the picture on your bottom right, and her and Olympia's father and her family, they all come up together at the castle at the top. That is the estate of Enrico d'Este, who was the Duke of Fiera. Quite a castle. It's a beautiful place. You can see it there. So this is where Olimpia was raised and kind of come up, and she spent a lot of time being a companion. She gained a lot of understanding about things, all the while still maintaining her Catholic heritage at the time. But some of that was going to be changing. The Reformation in Italy, as I said, was just really getting started a little bit. It did not advance as it did elsewhere, mostly because of the Catholic Church was so strong in Rome there. Owing its effective suppression and censorship of the new teaching by the church at the early stage. Now, listen to this. This is very interesting. The Dominican friar Girolamo Severnarlo, these names are something, regarded as a proto-reformer. Now, so for us, a proto-reformer would be someone prior to Luther, Calvin, who was a predecessor to the reformers. So this friar started preaching against unbiblical church policies. He was a Catholic now. He was a Catholic. And he started preaching against unbiblical church policies. And his works later influenced Martin Luther and Zwingli. But they did not have the same effect in his own country. And I think it's got to be because of the huge impact that the Catholic Church had there in Italy. Savernalo was hanged and burned as a heretic in 1498, but he had sown the seeds of reform through his preaching. Now, that's right. It did. It took 500 years. Yep. That's a shame, Mary Catherine. That's right. It was tough. That's why I was hesitant to even to note that. But the history foretells it for sure. But yeah, could be. Wow, that's an awful thing to say, in my opinion. Awful. So Severneo was hung, burned, and hanged. But what's interesting here, and I want you to notice how the Lord works. He became friends with Brother Este, the Duke that Olympia then was living with. It was the father of the one Olympia was living with. So, long story short, the Duke that Olympia's family was living with, and where she was friends with Anna, when she was friends with Anna, they took on Protestant thinkings, but the Duke did not. The Duke's wife took on Protestant thinkings. Her name was Renee, but the Duke did not still. So let me pick up here. The Duke did not share the sentiments of his grandfathers towards reform and remained a devout Catholic, but his wife Renee, an intellectual with an interest in scripture and philosophy, entertained a number of reformed-minded scholars and writers at court. The court was the where they have counsel, they talk to one another, etc. It wasn't like court like we think today, including John Calvin. Now remember, Renee was the Count's wife. She was Protestant. Renee was responsible for distributing Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion, one of the most significant works by a reformer, and she encouraged debate and discussion. Olimpia and Anna were encouraged by Renee to attend these debates, and through them, here it is. This is our sentence. And folks, I'm telling you, we see this. Jim, listen to me, brother. We see this over and over and over and over and over again. Olimpia became increasingly interested in reading the scriptures. I'm telling you, folks, it seems like we run up on this every single week. When these folks started to study the scripture, it started to light a fire in them. And so Renee, who was Anna's mother, Renee had Anna and Olimpia to participate in the debates. Now, they were still Catholics at the time. But through these, uh, Olimpia started to study the scripture. And then in 1546, Olimpia converted to the Protestant vision, but then had to leave court and return home to illness. And she returned to court again, or the house, but then had to leave to help her dad, her father, until he passed away in 1548. When she again returned, the earlier spirit of inquiry at the court had been suppressed. And that's Anna D. Estes had been married. That was her friend. She'd been married, and they moved to France. And so the Duke had initiated the Inquisition of Rome at Fiera to root out heretics. So this was going to be a bad deal for Olimpia. So prior to this, Olimpia, Renee, and Anna had been able to be under the good graces, as it were, and be protected from the Catholic onslaught, but that was changing. That was changing. And they both, Renee and Olimpia, became suspect of heresy. Olimpia remained at the castle or the court, seeing little of Renee, who at this point was essentially under house arrest because she was encouraging the Reformation. She hadn't been accused of heresy, and she spent her time tutoring her younger brothers and sisters. It's unclear where she went after she left court, but she concentrated on biblical study. She wanted to advance her Bible reading and setting aside her long devotion to works of classic literature. The Reformed vision of Christianity as a living, vibrant personal relationship with the loving God inspired a greater interest in the Bible than any other work that she had began. So really, what she did, she wrote letters on the Psalms. She wrote poems about the Scriptures. She wrote commentaries about the Scriptures. She tried to get some of the works of Luther translated into Italian so that Italians could read it. And in 1550, she married a physician whom she met in 1549. And Olimpia understood little German. It's thought that they talked in Latin. That's interesting because the gentleman she married, Grundler, spoke in German, but she understood very little, so she spoke in Latin. The marriage was not a match like was so often prevalent in this time. You know, a lot of times they had fixed marriages. This was a marriage based off of love, and that's really what carried it through. Grundler was a Protestant, but like many Protestant men of that time, was not threatened by an intellectual wife who conversed on biblical subjects. This is exciting here. This is very exciting. And this is in the year 50, in the 1500s. Olimpia, she had far advanced most of her male colleagues in the writing and poems and scholarly work that she set out to do. Her work existed in about 52 letters. She translated of the Psalms, and parts of 2 dialogues. We've talked about those. 11 poems. She wrote one of the reformers, Matthias Fulvius, asking him to translate Luther's work into Italian. And she kept up a correspondence with Anna their whole life. And in 1550, the Reformation had taken firm root in Italy. And although it didn't never lock in like it did in Germany, it had a great impact. She read the works of Luther, Calvin, and Zwingli, and she even corresponded back and forth with Luther and Calvin, and they spoke to one another. They encouraged one another, and I'm telling you, folks, when God gets a hold of somebody, there's the Scripture. It lights them on fire. Lights them on fire. Well, she ended up dying when she was 29 years old. And they don't know if it was some sort of tuberculosis or if it was the plague. The plague was prevalent at the time. But really, her contribution to the Reformation is that she was a great encourager. When she would go along on these routes, like when she was going in between, when she was trying to get to Heidelberg to Germany, people would give her books. Her contribution was her writings brought great encouragement to people to hold the faith of the scriptures, and to hold on to the Lord. And it so amazes me that God, I'm reminded that God uses these simple things of the world to confound the wise, and that's exactly what He did with her. He used a young lady that died of 29 years old to really strengthen what He was doing through this Reformation. And you can read more on her. There's not a ton written about her, but there is a little bit more that I've not included in here for time's sake. But I hope this has blessed you. Go back and read on Olimpia, and man, what a great lady! What a great young lady who who took her salvation very serious. And this is her death place. When she died, she was buried there at the in Heidelberg. I'm trying to remember the name of the church here. St. Peter's Lutheran Church is what it is. But her quote, she's quoted saying this: "I long to be dissolved. So great is the confidence of my mind, and to be with Christ, in whom my life flourished." I'm telling you, that is awesome. I long to be dissolved. So great in the confidence of my mind, and to be with Christ, to whom my life flourished. What an example this lady was to all of us, men and women. What a blessing. Listen, I hope you've enjoyed this installment. Make sure we didn't lose internet there. All right. How about now? I think you can hear me now. I think Jim is preaching tomorrow night. Of course, we'll have all our regular preaching on tomorrow. Can you hear me now, Sylvia? How about now? Can you hear me now? I know I lost it, but it should be back now. But anyway, we'll have all the regular preaching tomorrow, and look forward to seeing you then. If I can do anything for you, let me know. Till next time, it's Brother Donnie signing off. Hope you have a great evening. You've been listening to Heroes of the Faith. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you next time.